Welcome to another episode of the Growth Game Podcast. I'm Paul DeLuca, CEO of Meritus Capital, and your host. We're coming to you live from Orlando at Staffing World, and we're finishing our last day. We're going to have another great group of guests. And to start out the morning, Dave, Meyercord, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. We had a wonderful dinner last night. It was great to get to know you a little bit, but thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, it's a privilege. Dave, my whole podcast is all about the growth game, right? Yeah. And so we're gonna talk about a little bit of that. But if we didn't have the human element, it wouldn't be enjoyable. So I'd love to know just a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this business? Tell me a little bit of something that I don't know already.
Something that you don't know already.
Yeah.
Well, my career started in the Peace Corps and International Community Development.
Okay.
I lived in Dominican Republic and Haiti, moved into financial services, and then in 2007 was looking for something new, and that's when I took the plunge into staffing, and been doing it for the last 18 years.
How did you go from Peace Corps to financial services to staffing? Like was this something that you had heard about before, or what was your first entree into the staffing industry?
It's when I look back on it. When I was in Haiti, I didn't really think of it as this at the time. I was actually running a very, very large staffing program across the country in Haiti. It was the whole program was about putting as many people to work as possible across the country.
Sure.
From an international aid and program perspective. And later, only later did I realize, wow, that was kind of my entree into staffing.
Right.
And when I got out of financial services, it just happened to be an interesting career opportunity. I wasn't looking to get into staffing.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fell into my lap.
So funny. I have not had a guest yet that said I went to school and I plan to go into the staffing industry. And almost 95% of all my guests have used the exact same word that I fell into.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting industry that way, right? Like
Yeah.
it's this bedrock of the economy, and yet it's an industry that really isn't very well known even to this day.
No, it's really not. And it's really, I went to business school.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talked about getting staffing. And it's such an integral part of our communities, of our economy.
Right.
The great conversation and comment yesterday, one of the speakers saying, everybody we place increases our GDP.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Sure, pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, great. What kind of staffing did you go into at first?
At first, it was project-based staffing.
Okay.
A team based in Raleigh with a couple other offices, but most of it was all recruiters in Raleigh doing stuff all over the country.
Got it.
Project-based, short-term. Actually, we would staff all of the Hickory Farms kiosks and malls all over the country.
Oh, wow. How interesting.
Yeah. And
2000s, you said?
that was mid-2000s. Okay. And then had an opportunity to move into commercial, light industrial.
Right. Okay.
And then some professional mixed in there, and that's where I've been. Yeah.
Excellent. So you've been building staffing companies for almost 20 years?
Yeah. 18 years. Yeah.
And now what are you doing now? Now I understand you have an advisory group, and tell me a little bit about your company.
Yeah, I've got an advisory business, Buffalo Run Advisors. And really the whole point of the business was when you look around, you see there's so many owners, founders, folks who are running staffing companies who just can't break through to that next level.
Right.
Right. And they need help trying to figure out how to do that.
Right.
And in many cases, they haven't had the benefit of having maybe worked in a business that was bigger, more scaled, access to different kinds of technology, processes, ways of thinking.
Right.
And so it's all about helping folks, helping organizations get to that next level.
Excellent. I'd love to understand a little bit, what does that look like? So if you take a typical client, what are some of the challenges that they face? And, kind of walk me through, how do you identify those challenges? And then, what specifically would you do to be able to work with the owner and with the team to be able to kind of, like you said, break through that, and do something new and different?
For me, Paul, everything starts with asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Talking to folks at every level of the organization, validating assumptions. I have a mantra that I've always worked with my teams with, which is assume they don't know.
Yeah.
They being everyone.
Right.
Because we often have this kind of blind spot where we think everybody understands what I'm thinking.
Right.
They understands the logic behind what we're doing. They understand why we should be doing this or not doing that.
Sure.
And often those things haven't been communicated.
Right.
And so it's really trying to make sure that you're getting the input and also communicating outward. And it's amazing how often you find that doesn't happen enough.
Right. That's interesting. How do you do that with an executive team? How do you really break down assumptions to be able to get to the underlying root of really challenging them on those assumptions and changing their understanding, which I expect you have to do before you change behavior.
Right. And I think a lot of it is going back to some very basic kinds of things like a SWOT exercise.
Right.
Let's talk about
the whole executive
right.
team.
Yeah. And doing it in a way to make sure that you're getting the input from everyone. And I really also try to identify who are the influencers in the organization that may well not be on the executive team, but are people who impact culture, who the water cooler conversation,
Right.
What's going people when employees are maybe nervous about something or they're unsure about something, that's the person they go to because it's safe to go to that person. Well, bring that person into the conversation, right? And just make sure that you're getting the input, the honest input, and that people feel safe providing it.
Right.
That starts opening a lot of doors, a lot of insights, and then the conversation just really starts to flow.
Do you find that process of being able to really understand who the influencers are in an organization and getting them to open up, what's the best way that you've found to be able to identify those people and then be able to get them truly to engage and open up to you?
Yeah. I mean, one is that first step of kind of getting out there to talk to as many people as you can.
Yeah. Physically, in person.
In person, not, it's as much as possible. It's physically and in person. It's the road show.
Yeah.
And that the influencers start to emerge.
Right.
You start hearing their names more.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I like that.
And then you start, when you meet them and you talk to them, you start to see, oh yeah, well they're connected with everybody here.
Got it.
Right? And then it's engaging them, and boy, do they love to be engaged.
That's interesting. Do you find that that's a common theme with people who are influencers, that they want to be engaged because they're very connected to the group, or is it that they're just there is a certain extra meaning that their position has to that? Is there a theme?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a consistent theme, Paul, because sometimes you have folks that they feel like they're already connected. They feel like they have like they've got an in with the founder or something like that.
Right.
On the other hand, sometimes it's people who actually feel disconnected. They don't feel that they've been listened to, but for some reason they're a mouthpiece.
Got it.
And so for them to be brought into a place where you say, hey, you're valuable. What you're thinking about, what you have to say is valuable. Let's talk about it, because it's important to get this stuff on the table and to make sure that it's always done through the lens of positivity.
Yeah, right.
Anybody
have the optimism, then it's not going to change you go to the right direction.
Yeah, and that's part of the culture you have to drive is optimism. Anybody can sit in the bleachers and throw rocks. That's easy, it's lazy, and it's not helpful.
I agree with that.
So if you do have insights into something that maybe needs improvement or change, great, but bring a solution.
Right.
It may not be the solution we pursue, but it'll get us thinking.
Right.
And it gets you in the mindset of thinking positively about positive change versus the negative mindset of just criticizing what may not be working well.
Yeah, I like that. I know you've ran some very large businesses and you've grown some very large businesses. I'm curious if how different is the dynamic when you are an advisor or you're actually running the business as an internal? Is the dynamic very different to be able to run that same process?
Being an advisor, I find being an advisor can be a lot harder in a sense, because if you don't have the ability to execute.
Right. Yeah.
And
right. You see it, you know what needs done, doesn't mean you can actually get the change management to actually happen.
Exactly.
I like that.
And you then become dependent upon somebody else to execute.
Right. Right. And
Which
you're just like, oh, I know this word.
Right.
I want to do this.
Exactly. That may or may not happen. And other people, people within an organization sometimes think, is this the flavor of the month?
Right.
Did our founder just kind of come back from ASA and think, oh, we've got to find somebody to help us do this?
Yeah.
And then they're going to forget about it.
Right.
So from that perspective, it is the most important thing from my viewpoint is you've got to have accountability, you got to have commitment, you got to have follow through to make these things happen, because they don't just happen overnight.
Otherwise, you can't really affect change.
Right.
It's got to be a deeper engagement. So that's really what you look for in your engagement, is something deeper.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So there's been a lot of change in the last 5 years in our industry. What are some of the top few things that you would say is very different about our business, the staffing industry, as opposed to what it was, let's say, pre-pandemic?
Yeah. So in terms of what's different, I think you can't have a conversation without talking about AI, right? But the key is, there's so many people right now feeling like the train left the station, the AI train, and they're chasing it down the track.
Okay.
And I have to have AI, I have to have AI. Well, you got to take a step back and say, what business problem are you trying to solve?
Right. Do you find that that's a real challenge? People don't have that identified prior to actually working on that project?
I think there's a lot of, it's kind of a herd mentality.
Yeah. I find that so often in things.
People feeling like, oh my gosh, we have to implement AI. Well, to do what? I mean, I hear ingenious things people are doing with generative AI and large language models and all this stuff in their daily life.
Yeah.
And in the business, what are you going to do? How do you make sure, okay, here's a problem, a place we need more efficiency or scalability or something in our business. Okay, well, let's identify that. Let's look at the processes. Let's think about what are the solutions out there that might solve that. So, that, to me, there is more talk about that right now in the industry than there ever has been, from my perspective, around technologies.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier before for staffing companies to kind of not progress in terms of the tools and the technologies and things that they have, because they could just count on, hey, we're doing things the way we've always done it.
Right.
And I think it's harder to do that.
In general, that's not just the conversation around AI, but it's really in general with technology. So you find that there is a difference. The real big difference is that everybody realizes they need to adopt productivity tools and they need to adopt technology more. But do you find that it's really more talk than reality then?
In a lot of cases, it really is. And I think there's a lot of us lay people who really struggle to have a conversation with a service provider and understand what they're talking about when they're talking about their AI-based service offering.
Yeah.
Well, what exactly, and then how is this differentiated?
Sure.
And so I think it's got a lot of people with their heads swirling.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I completely concur with that. I'm curious, have you seen any, while we're talking about this, whether it's just technology or true AI, have you seen any implementations that are actually following through with that ideal of being able to, rely on the technology to gain some productivity in the processes?
It's a great question, Paul, and I think there are definitely plenty of cases out there where that is the case. I think where it's most effective is a people-first strategy to the implementation.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's not we got to slap technology on a problem or a perceived problem.
Yeah.
And it's going to cure our ills here, make everything better. Yeah. It's more, let's start with the people. Let's engage the team. Let's think about what can we do. Because every time you turn on your computer, or look at your phone, or hear the news, people are talking about jobs being displaced because of AI.
Right.
So employees are people are really nervous about that.
Totally agree with that.
So if you're not communicating, getting out front with the team and talking about using tools that can leverage, that can help make their job more value added, as opposed to eliminate their job, then the likelihood of success starting at that foundation with an implementation is so much higher.
Yeah, no, I agree. As you know, we've released our new product called Roster. And one of the things I was looking for is that, there was real need for technology for my clients and my future clients to actually really get the best value at it. And we've partnered with some incredible tools, and really, truly, there is real AI, but it's really all on the front end.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've been talking to our prospects about, and even our existing clients, is that this is literally not a replacement for anybody. In fact, if you use it right, you're going to get more productive.
Yeah.
And really, the reality is you're going to get more productive in that front end, which means you're going to hire more people.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Everything I've seen about the actual implementation of AI and technologies in my sphere has been, has created jobs.
Yeah.
Both internally and what I've seen in, so far in the staffing industry. So I really talk to people, owners and executives and employees at pretty much every level, where I'm really trying to say, listen, the AI is not going to replace you, but people who use AI will.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right.
Right.
You're exactly right. And one of the things that I think that in my understanding, I think Roster can really help with is companies. There are these different breakpoints of scale
Yes.
of a company.
I agree with that.
And that without improving or changing, technology or processes,
Right.
people, capabilities, you can't break through the next level.
Yes, that's very
And
true.
so, but you don't need the great big solution to
Right.
get through the first ceiling.
I totally agree with
And so if you can just get the appropriate technology, the right people focusing on how to use it, how to think about their job differently,
exactly.
you break through that ceiling, you get to that next level, you're creating more jobs, you're growing,
Well said.
and then eventually you get to the next ceiling and you got to get past that one.
Right, and you got to figure that one out. And that's exactly right. I think the kind of the beginning of what we're seeing, with real implementations with real AI is really that whole matching process. Being able to more quickly identify the right applicants, more quickly match those applicants. Also, even doing some of that, kind of just compiling the job recs more quickly, kind of embed that. And that's kind of the starting point. And then I think we're going to see some really incredible implementations. But again, with the clarity, this is just going to make us better at what we do.
Right.
To enhance the human element, to enhance that human relationship that will, in my opinion, will always be there in this industry.
Yeah, 100%. And I was working with the sales team last year on trying to help them understand how to use some AI tools. And I'm talking about free AI tools, ChatGPT, whatever, to just think about their messaging.
Yes.
And creating their messaging, and to think about targeting customers.
Sure.
And in some cases, it was a terrifying conversation at first. What you say
to me.
Yeah, and it's like, no, just let's try some things.
Yeah.
I'm not mandating you do it, but I want you to put your toe in the water.
Yeah.
Let's get familiar with some things. Let's try some sort of exercises. And suddenly people think, wow, okay, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Right? And then, but to your point, it is the people who can leverage those tools that are going to be the ones who are going to replace the jobs of the people who can't.
Exactly. That's
So I don't care if you're, my age or 24 years old.
Yeah.
You got to start figuring this stuff out.
I agree. Yeah, if you're going to continue to be in the workforce, you got to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
And even if not, it is actually enriching. I think there's a real aspect to that. Very, very interesting. So outside of AI, outside of technology, what are some of the key identifying patterns that you've seen in enterprises that are able to continue to grow over time?
Great culture.
Culture. Yeah, but
culture.
people talk about culture, Dave. And how do you actually create and maintain that culture?
So every organization has a culture.
Yeah.
It's whether you choose to own it.
Yeah. Okay.
And, for me, it all starts with, what do you believe in? What are your values? And how do you reinforce those values in the behaviors? What do you, every day, the things we do, the things we don't do, the things we say, the things we don't say.
Yeah.
How do they reinforce or detract from the core values and who we are and what is our mission? What's our purpose as a business?
Sure.
Everybody wants to be inspired. Everybody wants to feel like, man, I'm so excited to get up this morning and go to work.
Sure.
Because I'm doing something with purpose.
Yeah.
And the greatest companies, certainly the greatest companies in the long run, have great cultures, and it comes from leadership being incredibly intentional about it.
Yeah.
And bringing others into the process of the sort of articulation of the values and having it permeate the whole organization in a way that's very real and is constant and is evident wherever you look.
Yeah.
Versus something that people feel like, oh yeah, we all got a Lucite thing on our desk, or there's posters in the office,
Right.
or what have you, and it's not real,
Yeah.
right? And that's just fundamental.
Yeah. So, I've seen this many times where at the top, an owner, an entrepreneur does have, a real strong sense of what they believe in. They have a strong sense of the purpose of the business. But I find that being able to regularly articulate that and push that down into an organization that grows, that's really where the challenge usually is.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of bring that out in an organization and get it from the top down? If if the owner has a good purpose, but just doesn't have a good method to be able to kind of get it to percolate through the whole entity, the whole company.
Yeah, I think sometimes, Paul, owners, leaders feel like we developed this. I talked to everybody about it. And, we're one and done. So everybody now knows.
It's like, what? They don't know this? You don't know my mission statement?
Back to assume they don't know.
Yeah, right.
Right? You got to tell them. You got to tell them again. You got to keep telling them, and you got to tell them again. And, a company that I was just working with, we had, our purpose was changing people's lives.
Yeah.
And there were some people for whom, some of the folks who'd been with the company for many, many years, for whom that was really core.
Yeah.
The newer employees thought it was marketing.
Right.
And we just talked about it all the time.
Such an interesting thing.
And we solicited examples. So, give me examples of how we as a business have changed lives. And then every single company call, every meeting, always ended with a changing lives example.
That's so interesting. Do you remember any of those specifics? Do you have any specifics that come to mind of like what really, at the very grassroots level, like of what happened, how did their lives change, and how that actually kind of, that understanding kind of permeated through the company?
Yeah, there were countless examples. And I'm talking hardcore, like the email from the woman who said, my daughter and I were living in a car.
Wow.
You gave me a job.
Wow.
We're now in an apartment.
That's incredible.
That's like, it gives me goosebumps,
Totally.
right? That is, talking about changing lives, that's changing lives.
That's real.
Yeah, it is super real. And so many different examples of, oh my gosh, I got this job. I've been riding a bicycle for the last 3 years. I was able to buy a car, so now I can get to work better. And and it's changed my whole life. It's right.
Interesting.
And that is such sort of core base level stuff.
Yeah.
But when people feel like, wow, we as an organization, I as a recruiter, whatever it is, had a role in that.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
That frankly makes you reach a little bit harder.
Well, it does. And when those examples come from the team members, right, that's not the CEO saying, let me tell you all the great things I've done, or as a company, we're so wonderful. No, these are real life things. And then you get a chance to call out, we're going to talk about something that happened that, Paul did or heard about from somebody that Paul recruited.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, Paul's feeling pretty darn good. So Paul's colleagues are feeling like, wow, this is cool. And if Paul can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And it feeds on itself. But then those communications, those examples, they have to be constant.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you can't feel like, we did that. That was a great Q2 initiative.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody now is all jazzed up about, our values and stuff. And now we'll move on to something else. No, it's just got to be, it's part of your cadence of everything you're doing.
Just continue to talk about it. Continue to push it down throughout the entire organization. I love that. And, it's really interesting. I think it's one of the things that motivates me is I have seen so many of my clients' lives completely changed.
Yeah.
And, but I like what you're saying. It really, really filters all the way down. And it's probably one of the reasons that I like this business so much is it does change people's lives. And I really like that. I've had a client that term was actually in the name of their business.
Yeah, there you go.
And they believed it. It was and they lived it every day. And so it's very enjoyable. Well, that's excellent. I love that. I think that's super cool. Dave, what are you going to do next?
Paul, I'm currently looking for always on the lookout for companies that I can help. What I'm really excited about is next opportunity to run another company.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think you're a very passionate leader, and it's I would love to see that that come together for you. So whatever the future holds, I look forward to continuing to our relationship growing and be a friend and see these things. I love being around passionate people, and so it's been a real pleasure getting to know you these last couple of days.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
thank you so much for being on the growth game. That's some excellent tidbits or some patterns that you've really talked about that I think will really challenge my audience and be able to be something that they can actually implement and think about. So that's awesome.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. It's been so great to get to know you, and we're going to be on this journey together for a long time.
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Fantastic meeting you, Dave. Thanks you very much. It was great. Thanks for being on.
Appreciate it.
All right, audience, that's another wrap for the Growth Game podcast, live from Orlando at Staffing World. It's been an amazing conversation. We've had some incredible conversations these last couple of days, and we've got 3 more coming, so stay tuned. But for now, that's a wrap.